Good afternoon, Your Majesty, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. A very warm welcome to this very special conversation. This year, the theme of Bhutan Echoes is the art of being human. I've been reflecting on this theme for the past few weeks, and I find myself thinking that this is the perfect conversation to fall under this theme, and I'm very grateful for this privilege. Many of us first came to know Genla Lobsang Phunsok through Tashi and the Monk, the Emmy Award-winning extraordinary documentary that introduced audiences around the world to a remarkable children's community deep in the Himalayas called Jamtse Gatsal Children's Community. And for the audience here, Jamtse Gatsal literally translates to Garden of Love and Compassion. But what moved people wasn't simply the story of a school. It was a story about belonging, about healing, and about what can become possible when a child who has been rejected, abandoned, misunderstood, and even judged encounters somebody who refuses to judge them and who refuses to give up on them. Last year, I had a very rare opportunity to actually visit Jamtse Gatsal in Arunachal Pradesh in India with a group of educators from ELC school here in Thimphu. Like many who visit, I arrived expecting to learn more about education. Instead, I left reflecting on much more deeply on what it means to be human. During that visit, I also had the opportunity to spend quite some time with Genla Lobsang, and our conversations, Genla, have stayed with me long after I returned home. It is therefore an incredible privilege for me, not just professionally, but personally, to welcome someone that I deeply admire, respect, and I'm very grateful to call my friend Genla. So please join me once again, in welcoming Genla Lobsang Phunsok on the stage. So Genla, I would love to begin not by talking about Tashi and the Monk, but with an idea that has stayed with me from some of your talks. You have spoken about children arriving at Jamtse Gatsal feeling like uninvited guests to this universe. That's a very powerful image. What makes a child begin to feel like they truly belong again,
Thank you, Your Majesty, for this great opportunity. Thank you, Bhutan Echoes, for this honor to share my experience here. And Srinla, thank you for your very gracious introduction. Now people are going to think I'm really fancy. It's a great question. There's a lot to do with my personal childhood struggle. It's not I started this community because I know what I was doing or I have a lot of means to do it. I didn't have both. I didn't know what I was doing. And I didn't have any money. I started with 9,000 USD community with 35 children, orphans. Because of my own struggle. So what do you do to make child feel belonging? Because of my background, I don't have many knowledge, wisdom, and achievements in my life. But one advantage I found is that my own mistake and failures. So I started with what I should not do with children. I often think about bonsai tree. I don't know, sometimes it feels very awkward to tell bonsai tree. It's not really a tree. And I often think, where does really a bonsai tree belongs? Because one of my visits to America, I think, somebody introduced me this bonsai tree, so beautiful. I think it was, the tree was sequoia tree. And they explained me this tree could grow up to 200, 300 feet, but there was only 2 feet. It made me think a lot. I said, well, my goodness, this can grow one of the tallest and giant tree of the world, but humans are so smart, we just limit it to only 2 feet. And it was so expensive. I think today, as myself educator, I question myself, am I nurturing, growing a tree, or am I producing bonsai tree? Because our concept of education, even sometimes our concept of love, is very limiting. It kills the real potential of human. Because we have an idea of how education should be, and we have a very rigid idea of how we should raise children, how we should educate children. Maybe it's very outdated. So when I learned about a little bit of a bonsai tree, I said, how do you make such a, it is beautiful. I said, what is the purpose of this? It is art. It has a demand in market. And I don't remember how much it was, but it was very expensive. I said, my goodness. And one thing he said, that the secret of producing bonsai tree is you have to limit the roots, just grow, you have to plant in a tray. And then they do a lot of pruning, trimming, and they put wire to pull it down. That made me think of sometimes we as an educator, and sometimes when we as a parents, we do that a lot because the market is asking. There is a need for the market. We want to look the street to look this way and want branch to go this way, and we don't want this one. Can you cut it? And that process is very brutal, very brutal. I belong to a very small tribe from Arunachal Pradesh, place called Tawang. We are nature lover. And I remember I used to get beat by my grandfathers because one time I've actually put a nail on tree. And my grandfather said, you could never do this. This will affect the growth of tree. When I see the bonsai tree, I said, my goodness, they're going to go to hell. Is there hell? I did only one nail and I got beat by, my grandfather for a few times. So now your question of what should we do to make children feel belongings is, as I said, there are certain things I learned what I should not do. That is one of them. The another thing is, I think relationship is one of the most important things. Now when we say relationship, it's a relationship especially when things go wrong. Relationship especially when kids don't listen to you and break each and every rules you have, and when they are in a worst behavior. And that is a right and most conducive time to build real relationship. Not your kids get like the top 3 national award and you take them to, vacation to the Thailand or Singapore, wherever. Those don't build relationship. But real relationship, when they are most unacceptable behaviors when they display, and that is a time to build a relationship. I'm not talking about, give them nice birthday present, take them to a holiday, celebrate, when they are doing great. But I focus on when kids are worse relationship, when they are in worse behaviors. How do you do that? We have rules in community. 4 words are illegal to use in our community. First, right and wrong. You cannot use children right and don't do this. This is wrong thing to do. Do it is a right thing to do. Right or wrong, word is banned in my community. And good and bad is not allowed to use. Now I say reason this, why I say this. Let's think about if one kid punched another kid. Normally what we do as educator, parents, don't do that. It is bad thing to do. You kill relationship there. You kill all the conversation there. When you kill conversation, you kill the relationship out there. Because you already made a decision. You say, I'm not interested. I don't have time to have a conversation with you. So I have a rules. Don't do that. It's the wrong thing to do. But when you make that 3-4 words illegal, then you have to think much harder. How do I educate my children not to punch next time when he or she is frustrated? That is a now opportunity to build relationship. It requires attention, it requires empathy, and it requires patience. And most teachers, we don't have that, including me. We have to get done fast, checklist before 4 p.m., 5 p.m. I want to tell one story. I was a monk. And one thing that really changed me growing up in a monastery is I was a monk and I loved romantic Hindi movies. Maybe it's not appropriate. Especially I was in love with one of the most beautiful Indian actors, Madhuri Dixit. My goodness, I was like very deeply in love with. But my love to her was very healthy and safe. Healthy in a sense, she doesn't know. And healthy in a sense, whatever she says, I would say, it's not going to affect my relationship to the Madhuri. And it was very safe. She could never break my heart because it's impossible for this bold man to have a Madhuri addiction. So you always choose when you want to fall in love, so safe and healthy love. So what happens was in my monastery, if you watch movies 3 times, if you get caught, you will kick out from the monastery. I get caught 2 times, but it doesn't mean I watch only I watch more than 300 romantic Hindi movies. The second time when I got caught, so it was the most embarrassing thing was now I need to take my teacher, my guru to the discipliner. So discipliner will now talk to my teacher, say, can you control this boy? That was the most embarrassing thing you can do to your teacher, disrespectful you can do to your teacher. And that happened. And of course we did that process. And then last process is I'm supposed to go to my personal guru and I have to apologize. And I'm in the middle of many monks. I was so scared and I couldn't sleep and know what's going to happen. Worst thing could happen. So I prepared myself. And next day I went, I made 3 prostration. I said, you know what he said to me first thing is, he said, did you enjoy the movie? Wow. I said, how was the movie? I said, my goodness. Immediately, it changed me. It changed me. What discipliner said to me, it is wrong. You broke the rules. You will be kicked out from the monastery next day to my personal guru. It's like, did you enjoy it? And the most amazing thing he said to me was, if you really want to watch a movie, learn some tricks that you don't get caught next time. After that, actually, I didn't go to watch movies. What really changed me is not my discipliner who actually gave me the lecture, but what really changed me is the empathy and relationship my teacher. As I said, he never said, this is the wrong thing to do, and this is the right thing to do. Don't go, he said. If you want to go, even he didn't say go. If you want to go, learn some tricks so you don't get caught. So I always thought, I want to do this with my children. So I said, these are the 4 illegal words every education and parent shouldn't use. We should penalize them when they use this. So that leads to the deeper conversation. That leads to the deeper conversation. Is it too long? Yeah.
Genla, you already answered like my next 3 questions, so I have to play around with the session flow a bit. Thank you so much for your answer, Genla. As you shared, maybe sometimes the word education or the way we look at it, approach it, understand it is a little bit limiting. And yes, I think you answered the question. For you, when a child starts to feel like they belong, what I heard, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is when the judgment is removed from the situation. The 4 banned words at your school are all judgment words: good, bad, right, wrong. And so a little context and background for Jamse Gatsella. The 35 children that they started with and the almost 100 something, over 200 today, they are all children who have come from very difficult circumstances where their primary caregivers were otherwise not able to care for them. So as you can imagine, this is not a school or a community that has unlimited resources to take all the children forever. So you need some criteria, right, Genla, how you decide who becomes a part of the Jamse family. And once you join Jamse Gatsel, it's for life. So my question is, Genla, when we look at children as adults, we often see behavior first. A child who is disruptive, a child who is difficult, a child who is withdrawn, academically behind, very emotional, has anger problems. We see that behavior. But when you meet that same child, what do you see that others often miss? And I guess maybe as an add-on, when Genla goes and visits families and communities, sometimes desperate parents will try to offer Genla their best child. This is my brightest. This one has the most chance to go as far as possible. Take this one. And Genla says, no, give me your most difficult one. Give me your most challenging one. So what do you see that others may miss, Genla?
Seeing you. Oh, wow. Wow. As you said, this whole community was definitely experiment we are doing in Tawang. The reason I left US to experiment how far love and compassion can go. What happens when suffering and pain meets the compassion? Experiment. When you do experiment, you don't want the best, most intelligent, and the most well-behaved kids to select. So that's the opposite path we took. And another thing I called is educations are focused on top 3, but rest of the 97%, nobody wants it. Yeah, even you look at India, all the best schools that we call, they pick the most intelligent children, and then teachers and administration, they celebrate. You don't have to do much if you pick the best ones. They do all your work. But the real schools are actually pick up the worst ones, and then you have to prove that your school system is the best if you can turn them into amazing kids. So our focus was the rest of the 97. Now, when our interview is, if you go to the kids, the orphans, and we always pick up single mother mostly, and we pick up the worst one. They will always give the best, and we always choose the worst one. We always say they always get nervous, and they want to send the most well-behaved and intelligent kids, and at the end they were surprised because I said, now who is the worst kids? And there are 2 practical reasons why I do this. One, I said our own experiment purpose. Another thing is when the single mother has 5 kids without a dad, one naughtiest and most misbehaved kids all her attention and energy. So when you take the worst, actually she can pay more attention, give love to the rest of the children. So that is another practical reason. Now, how do we look at the children? Is I say, children's misbehaving is you think as an energy. We have a child, Tashi, when she came as a 5 years. In India, especially in Tawang, we have a shortage of electricity. I always look from Tawang to Bhutan and always like bright. Any international visitors, they ask me, Genla, where is the Bhutan? I say, wait till the night. Wherever you see light, that is a Bhutan. Wherever is it dark, is a India. And sometimes I joke our administration, please take care of our electricity needs. Otherwise, I'm going to move to Bhutan. They have electricity and they have a network all the time. Yeah. So I think this Tashi, as I said, my goodness, she has so much energy. If we can channelize her energy, we can have enough electricity for entire district. Now think that way. It is very true. Our job as an educator and a parents is to recognize, identify misbehavior as not the behavior, whatever behavior, not the bad behavior. See that as energy, and our job is to channelize that energy. And they could put that energy. They have so much energy, so much energy. We should get excited. And the most naughtiest kids will become the greatest scientists if you nurture them. Not the best one. They struggle in a society to even survive. Identify that. When they're so naughty, immediately treasure them. Go after that energy, the hidden energy they have inside, and use it. And that kids will become the most amazing treasure of your school. I think that's how, maybe.
This segues really well into my next question, Genla. I know you're very humble, but I would argue that you are one of those children, La. You are one of those. You come from that background, Genla, and look at what you're doing now today, La. So my question is, in one of your TEDx talks, you have spoken, and you shared here on the Bhutan Echo stage as well, how your grandparents sent you to the monastery to become a monk when you were 7 years old. You have spoken very openly about having thoughts of ending your own life before you even turned 7 years old, and another time after that. And you talk about how your journey to the monastery was not about becoming learned or realized or enlightened or a great master. You said that for you, going to the monastery was a journey of unbecoming. What does unbecoming mean to you? And why do you think it's so important, maybe especially for those of us who are raising and educating young children today?
There are more than maybe two categories. Normally I put into two categories. There's two different kinds of people go to the monastery or sent to the monastery. One, highly realized, amazing Buddha, almost Buddha. They go to the monastery because they are enlightened being. But most people don't know is there's another category where I belongs to. Society cannot handle anymore. You are unwanted. You're almost like a little terrorist. I don't know how in your Bhutanese society, in my society, even parents used to say, you better behave, otherwise I will send you to the monk. So I was from that category. I couldn't behave. So they sent me to the monastery. So that is a last avenue. And I often talk about there was, as I was growing up, it was actually, in a Western term, for me, it's very much like a mental hospital, in a very positive way. Very positive way. And one thing it was very clear for me is when my grandparents decided to say, oh, we have 5 minutes? Okay. They said to me, we wish that you become a human. I was very, very powerful. In their eyes, I was not even a human. And that was, they said, we don't expect you to become geshe, high teacher. We just want you to find the human in yourself. So my journey was all unbecoming. When I say unbecoming, it's basic. My growth was, I call. Growth was for me, it was not adding more onto me, but actually dropping the dead weights I was carrying, my pain, my anger, my hate, my dislike to myself and everything. So everything was always dropping. Unbecoming was a becoming to me. So there was a
Finding your way back home to yourself. Thank you so much, La. Very mindful of time. So I'll ask the final question now, La Genla. I want to end with something deeply personal, La, and I thank you deeply, La Genla, for bringing that vulnerability and authenticity to this conversation from the very beginning. From our visit to Jamtse last year, you shared a sentence in one of our conversations that has stayed with me ever since. You said that, and I quote, La, I came into this world full of tears. I came into this world with so much sadness, and I'm determined to leave it smiling. I remember hearing those words and feeling very emotional at the time, and every time I think about it, like right now, I'm feeling emotional again. And I think it was very triggering for me, La. It was triggering and also healing. Healing to a part of me that I have struggled with and continue to struggle with in terms of my own mental health, personally. But that line was so powerful to me because I think it really helped to shift and expand my overall perspective. I'm deeply grateful for that. So my question is, if you could please share what that line means to you. I came into this world crying, and I will leave it smiling.
What I feel is where I'm born, how I born, I'm not responsible for that. But my real responsibility is how I want to go and leave this world. That empowers me. I have a control over how I want to say goodbye to this world. I didn't have a control how I want to born and which family and which country I wanted to born. Now it has a deeper meaning to me that personally is my mom got pregnant when she was very young. And it was a disgraceful in our village to have a child, illegitimate child, without the marriage. So since then, because of her own challenges, my relationship with my mother was very, very difficult. And that led me to go to the monastery. And of course, in our culture, we don't have actually culture of celebrating birthday, but so much is now modernized. This is a question my children ask me often. Kenla, why you never celebrate your birthday? So this is one thing I told them. My birthday was not a happy birthday. It was a very sad birthday for so many of us. So, but one thing I want you guys to do for me is please do celebrate my death day if I do something positive for this world. And I really mean it. I want to die with a smile. I didn't come with a smile, but I want to say goodbye to the world with a smile if I do something right. And very recently, last month, a dear friend and a great supporter of Jamse, a wonderful lady in Singapore, she said, I didn't want to celebrate my birthday, but this time I want to celebrate birthday to raise a funding for Jamse Gasal. And my goodness, this wonderful lady, she raised over 10,000 USD or something. So she gave me reasons. Next year, I want to celebrate my birthday. And you know, one of my boys said to me, but she is very beautiful, Gary, you're a bold man. Do you think they will give that much donation? But at least I'm going to try. Next year, I'm not beautiful and handsome like her, but I'm trying to celebrate my first birthday inspired by our friend in Singapore. So I think it would be great to celebrate my birthday. Thank you so much. I think yes.
We will celebrate with you. Thank you. Thank you so much, Lagenla. Looks like we have to close now, so I will just share something because we hope that you'll continue on this journey with Jamse Gatsel with us. But first, before that, Genla, thank you so much for not just for the films, but for reminding us that we always should not forget to treasure our children. We're very good at measuring our children, but sometimes we forget to treasure them as well.